And?
And what?
David, surely the only thing that would interest anybody about Richard Nixon would be a full, no-holds-barred confession.
Oh, we'll get to that too.
What?
Oh, come on, John. You know what a blow it was to me losing the New York show. Now, if I could get Nixon, if I could be the first person to interview him after leaving the White House, over and above Mike Wallace and all the rest of those American guys, now that would be a way back. That would be a get. And it goes without saying, if I got this, I want one person by my side. Do you know how many people watched his resignation speech? 400 million! What?
$600,000, David? It's a fortune.
Don't worry about the money.
But I do. See, most Americans think Nixon belongs in jail, and you're making him a rich man. Besides, by outbidding them, you're making enemies out of the networks already sounding off about checkbook journalism.
They're just jealous.
And by making enemies out of the networks, syndication's always going to be an issue. No syndication, no advanced sales. No advanced sales, no commercials, no commercials, no revenue.
Ah, stop being such an old maid.
Plus, and this is the bigger question, why do it? You don't need it. Your career's in great shape. Besides, it'll spread you across 3 continents and damage your other shows. Is it true Channel 7 in Australia offered you another season?
Yes.
In London too?
Yes, but that's London and Australia. This would be
What?
new. Oh, you wouldn't understand. You weren't there for the New York show. But it's indescribable, that feeling when you're up. Success in America is unlike success anywhere else in the whole world. And that sickening feeling when it's left you, and the emptiness when it's gone, and it's gone somewhere else to someone else, and it's never coming back. There was a restaurant in New York called Sardi's. Ordinary mortals could not get a table. John, that was my canteen.
You know, David, I'd have felt much better if you'd given me any vision at all that you have for this interview. Or anything, really. But I hear nothing. Just a man that's doing it because it would create headlines or give you a seat at the top table, and that makes me nervous. Very nervous.
And you do nervous so beautifully.
Champagne, sir?
Ah.
I think I'll just get some rest.
Oh, thank you.
You don't like champagne?
Not on aeroplanes.
Oh, yes. It dehydrates one terribly. But I heard the trick is to have a glass of water on the side, the way the Viennese serve coffee.
I've never been to Vienna.
Oh, you'll like it. It's like Paris, without the French.
Oh.
Good book? Middlemarch. Oh, they say that the town in that book is based off the town I grew up in.
Which was?
Kempston, Bedfordshire. Although we pretty much went all over the place when I was growing up. My father was a minister.
Really? In which party?
The Methodists. You know, you could be a Dorothea.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, why? Don't look like that. She was one of English literature's most famous beauties.
Yes, but she's so honest and decent and falls for such a vain, self-important older man.
Nothing wrong with vain, self-important older men. What's your name?
Caroline.
David.
Yes, I know. David Frost. I heard an interview with you recently on the radio. You were giving it from the back of your Rolls Royce.
Bentley.
On the phone. They said you were a person who defined the age we live in.
Really?
You and Vidal Sassoon. What made you exceptional, they said, was that you seemed to have achieved great fame without possessing any discernible quality.
Oh, how kind.
And that you fly around a great deal.
Yeah, it's true.
Taping finished, I overheard two crew members talking. And they were saying how when Nixon was in office, they had never voted for him. But if he was running again today, he would get their support. You're making him sound presidential, for Christ's sakes. And forget the trivia. Who cares if he brought the White House bed with him when he traveled to Europe?
I do.
Well, it's irrelevant. And just the sort of banal anecdote that would distract a talk.
What? Go on. Say it. You were going to say talk show host.
Yes.
Oh. Listen. It is useless me trying to answer to any of your points. Frankly, I don't share the same alarm or pessimism as you all do. And this ridiculous self-flagellation is just depressing. Oh, and threatening to derail the whole enterprise. If any of you have really lost faith and think this plan is going to fail, well, you can leave the project now, or else it will infect everyone else. Oh, no one. Right. Good. Now, I suggest that instead of festering around the hotel for the next 5 days, we all go our separate ways for Easter. Oh, but first, Caroline and I would like to invite you for a little celebratory dinner at Patrick Terrell's new place.
To celebrate what, David? The project is going down the tubes and we're all about to be out of a job?
It's my birthday, Bob. I'd like to celebrate my birthday with a few friends.
Of course, this being David, a few friends meant 100 people at Ma Maison for dinner.
Really? Is there nothing else we can do? Really? Right. Well, thank you for letting me know. They dropped the Australian show.
Oh, David.
Because of my time I've been putting into this. They think I need to reevaluate my priorities. And now my producer thinks that the London show will follow. I am in this for everything I've got financially. And there's still no guarantees that this will be picked up. What have I done? What was I thinking? Somebody should have physically stopped me. They should have physically stopped me.
Let's stay in tonight. I'll call and make our apologies. What do you want to eat? I'm going to go to the restaurant downstairs and bring something back. Fish or steak? Which? Oh. I'll call from the restaurant.
No, I didn't, and I'm interested. You used the term obstruction of justice. Perhaps you have not read the statute with regard to the obstruction of justice.
As it happens, I have.
You have, you say. Well, then you know it just doesn't require an act. It requires a specific corrupt motive. And in this case, I didn't have a corrupt motive. What I was doing was in the interest of political containment.
Be that as it may, but the direct consequences of your actions would have been that two of the convicted burglars would have escaped prosecution. How can that not be a cover-up or obstruction of justice?
I think the record shows, Mr. Frost, that far from obstructing justice, I was actively facilitating it. When Pat Gray of the FBI called me on July 6th, I said, Pat, go right ahead with your investigation. Hardly what you call obstructing justice.
That may be, but 2 weeks prior to July 6th, we now know that you were desperately trying to contain or block the investigation.
Now hang on.
Obstruction of justice is obstruction of justice, whether it's for a minute or for 5 minutes. And it's no defense that your plan failed. I mean, if I were to try to rob a bank and fail, it's no defense. I still tried to rob that bank.
Now wait a minute, Mr. Frost. There's no evidence of any kind.
The reason why there is no evidence is because 18.5 minutes with that conversation with Bob Haldeman have mysteriously been erased.
An unfortunate oversight, but Bob Haldeman is a rigorous and conscientious note-taker, and his notes are there for all to see.
Well, Nye found something rather better than his notes.
Now that...
Mr. President, we were talking about the mistakes that you'd made, and I'm wondering, would you go further than mistakes? A word that not enough people might understand.
Well, what word would you express?
My goodness. All right. Since you asked, there are 3 things that the American people would like to hear you say. Firstly, there were more than mistakes, there were wrongdoings. And yes, it might have been a crime too. Secondly, I abused the power I had as president. And thirdly, I put the American people through 2 years of agony, and I apologize for that. And I know how difficult this can be for anyone, and especially you. But I think people need to hear it. And unless you say it, you'll be haunted for the rest of your life.
It's true. I made mistakes, horrendous ones. Ones that were not worthy of a president. Ones that did not meet the standard of excellence that I've always dreamed of as a young boy. But if you remember, it was a difficult time. I'd been caught up in a 5-front war against a partisan media, a partisan House of Congress, and a partisan Irvin Committee. But yes, I have to admit that I did not fully meet that responsibility and was involved in a cover-up, as you call it. But for all those mistakes, I have a very deep regret. If you want me to get down on the floor and grovel, no. Never. I still insist they were mistakes of the heart and not mistakes of the head. But they were my mistakes, and I don't blame anyone else. I brought myself down. I gave them a sword, and they stuck it in, and they twisted it with relish. And I guess if I had been in their position, I'd have done the same.
And the American people.
Well, I just hope I haven't. I let them down. I let down my friends. I let down the country. Worst of all, I let down our system of government and the dreams of all those young people that ought to get into government but now think it's too corrupt. And the rest, yes. I let the American people down, and I have to carry that burden with me for the rest of my life. My political life is over.